It's Michael Popok, Legal AF. Stop the Steal has already started for Donald Trump and the Republican lawyers and officials. They're already trying to destabilize the 2024 election, laying the groundwork that when the inevitable happens and Donald Trump loses, they have an avenue, having already tried to undermine and put fear and doubt into voters' minds about what should be stable and consistent voting systems and institutions that have been with us and improved over time, and for which there is never outcome determinative fraud, but not if you listen to the Republican lawyers and operatives now who are already beating the drum and laying the groundwork for attacking the outcome of the 2024 election. I mean, Stop the Steal didn't start in 2020. Stop the Steal as a philosophy started in 2014 and 2015 with Roger Stone. They were going to claim that Republicans now, as an article of faith, do not believe and don't want their voters to believe. They're massive election deniers, that the election process has integrity. And therefore, they're going to argue that the steal has already started. Now, if they win, they'll say this was the most secure, so much election integrity, everything was done right because of our efforts. And if they lose, it's those slippery Democratic B-words who did it again and stole another election. And then they take that, couple it and smash it together with some conspiracy theories, misshapen data, statistics that don't make any sense, election experts that are nothing of the kind. They put it all together, put a ribbon on it, and they file it in a lawsuit. And now what they're also doing, as reported, I think pulled together nicely in a New York Times article that just got published. Let me give a little shout out there to getting our synapses firing to Jim Rutenberg and Nick Corasaniti at the New York Times. They're also using election and elected officials to attack voting rules and regulations state by state already. I mean, there's a reason that a prime election denier, MAGA lawyer, Cleta Mitchell, who got fired from her old law firm that I used to work with, Foley and Lardner, and now is just doing MAGA things, leads election integrity foundations, and that the Heritage Foundation leads election integrity foundations and organizations. It's nothing of the sort. It's downright Orwellian. They're not election integrity committees and organizations. They're out to undermine the primary right to vote, making voting harder, right? Shortening early voting dates, making them inconvenient for people to use, attack drop boxes, attack mail-in voting, attack absentee voting, make it really, really hard. They use another Orwellian phrase to defend themselves. We want every legal vote counted. No, they don't. No, they don't. They want to make it so difficult that everybody has to wait on some sort of sweltering line, with a hurricane raging over their head for a limited period of time, basically get off of work, leave their children and loved ones behind that they care for, and wait in line in an old-fashioned voting machine because electronics can't be trusted. I mean, just to give you an example, because we keep talking a lot about the Heritage Foundation, which is the midwife for the 900-page opus manifesto Project 2025, the presidential transition paper, to let Donald Trump hit the ground running in the first 180 days with his policies of retribution and his vendetta. And the Heritage Foundation, funded by the Federalist Society, by Leonard Leo, and by others, right? This is a part of a mothership, a hub, along with Christian nationalists and the rest, trying to get Donald Trump elected. They have a bloodlust to get Donald Trump elected, if you will. Have already, let me just give you the project director for voting for the Heritage Foundation that I just described, the Project 2025 Agenda 47 blueprint for chaos that Donald Trump is going to implement. Here's his quote: "As things stand right now, in June, July of 2024, there's zero chance of a free and fair election." This is in July. The voting hasn't even happened. That's like saying before you go to a restaurant that's, a 3-star Michelin restaurant, there is zero chance I'm going to enjoy the meal I'm going to order next week. Well, how do you know? So this Mike Howell, the project director at Heritage Foundation, goes on to say, I'm formally accusing the Biden administration of creating the conditions that most reasonable policymakers and officials cannot in good conscience certify an election. This is already the drumbeat. No wonder the Republicans have difficulty getting their voters to vote early or mail-in or absentee, and why the Democrats have a natural advantage into the millions, into the multiple percentage points on that score. Donald Trump even figured it out in a panic moment, when in the last couple of weeks he's telling his voters, vote early, use mail-in, you use early. You got to beat the Democrats at their game. The facts as set forth in all the indictments against Donald Trump and in the Jan 6 committee official report is that there is no doubt in anybody's mind that the 2020 election was the most secure, had the most election integrity of any election we've ever had. Don't take my word for it. Take the word for it of people that Donald Trump put into positions to run those organizations, like Chris Krebs, the head of cybersecurity election integrity. He said it under oath, and he got fired for it when he challenged Donald Trump. Every Secretary of State has said the exact same thing in each of their states about their states voting. Sure, there is fraud. Let me repeat that. There is fraud in every election in every country, including in the United States. Shock. There's an old joke about Joe Kennedy helping his son JFK get elected and making sure that the vote got out in places like Chicago and Illinois, in those kind of places. And the joke is that he was buying an election, but he wasn't buying a landslide. And so he was turning off the spigots to support his son's election. Some truth in that, but there is no longer outcome determinative fraud. The 1,000 here, the 1,000 there. Are there dead people voting? Graveyard voting? Yes. Are there people voting in the wrong precincts? Yes. Are there people voting their dead mother-in-law and father-in-law's ballots? Yes. Are there people who are voting more than once, not named Mark Meadows? Yes. Is it enough to change the outcome of any election for the president or any other office? No. Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device, and flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Instead, Fume draws flavor to your mouth. Fume fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. There's no vapor, and you can use it anywhere. There's no nicotine, and it's not addictive. The non-toxic flavors are a guilt-free alternative. Fume doesn't use any batteries, so you'll never need to charge it. The design is super sleek, it looks awesome, and you can truly feel the weighted, high-quality design. I mean, one of the fun things about Fume is that it's made to fidget with and calms anxiety with magnets, snaps, and clicks. Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. My favorite Fume flavor is the orange vanilla. It's just as delicious as it sounds. And look, if you're trying to kick your bad habit, I couldn't recommend Fume enough. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code LEGALAF to get a free gift with your Journey Pack. Head to tryfume.com. That's TRYFUM.com and use code LEGALAF or scan the QR code on the screen to get a free gift with your order today. So they keep pointing to this there's a giant fly. There's not even a giant. It's a fly in the room, and they want to use a nuclear warhead to kill it. And it's just a ruse in order to create a boogeyman under the bed to, I think, get people not to vote for the Republicans. I never really quite understood the strategy. But what really it is to undermine yet another major pillar of our society that we always relied on. We may not have liked the criminal justice system. We can recognize that there's a two-tier component to it and that black and brown people do worse in it. but we at least thought it was a stable pillar of our society and a defender of our United States Constitution. The United States Supreme Court used to fit that bill as well. The presidency used to fit that bill, but no longer. Now, and elections, it was a rite of passage to get your voter card. When I turned 18, I couldn't wait. It wasn't to get a drink, even though that got taken away from me within months. I had to wait till I was 19 and now 21. But it was to vote and pull that switch. I still remember my first political rally that I went to. Sure, it was Mondale Ferraro in the middle of the village as I was about to start college. I thought they were going to win based on that group. And I loved, the chance of having the first female vice president at the time. But I didn't worry about my vote in that old-fashioned giant metal box with the curtain, with the old dusty curtain that I pulled across, hit the switch, close the curtain, record. And then, I just assumed all those little paper ballots were going to be taken out the back later and be counted properly. And they were. But that Republicans don't want that. They want to lay the groundwork for deniability. If they win, it's because they protected the integrity of the process. It was their people who were poll watchers and their election officials and their changes in the laws that tighten up so tight you can't even use mail-in balloting in some states or absentee balloting. So tight that you can't even vote early. It's like a day or two before the election. Every hurdle they can think of, every meat grinder they can put the voter through, they're going to. And if they win, they'll say, aha, it's because of that. And if they lose, they'll say what this guy's saying for the Heritage Foundation right now in June, July of 2024. It's already unfair. We're already going to lose. Right? So we're beaten with both ends of the stick at the very same time. But this is the strategy you need to be aware of. There's a reason these people are saying these things. There's a reason that they are recruiting through Lara Trump and the other one that's heading the Republican National Committee, the RNC, the daughter-in-law and the other guy. There's a reason that they're hiring a whole cadre of Republican MAGA lawyers to be on the ground as a law squad to go after this. Now, look, I've been involved on the Democratic side with serving as, lawyers for fill in the blank for the Democratic nominee. I was lawyers for Obama. I was lawyers for Biden. And we had it, what we really were doing was making sure that whatever the election laws were on the books as adopted by that state's legislators were abided by in real time in the polling place. Because you've got all these, they're nice people generally, but you got all these part-time, volunteer poll workers. Even the precinct, the heads of the precinct, it's not a full-time gig. You can rarely get to the person who's responsible for the county for voting in the clerk's office. So you're left with these other people. And sometimes they get trained very quickly and they don't understand that if a person shows up and shows this type of ID, but not that type of ID, they may still be able to vote, that it doesn't have to end up in the provisional ballot box. It can end up in the real ballot box. And you have that kind of hand-to-hand combat in a collaborative way to educate and to learn and to advocate. So I did that when I was a registered voter in that particular state. And when I wasn't a registered voter, I stayed outside and I was a poll watcher to watch what was going on in the parking lot on the lead up into. And I would contact whoever I needed to contact on a walkie-talkie or a cell phone about what was going on outside and have them be ready on the way in. And we coordinated it that way. So I get it. And it's okay that the Republicans have a similar group. I mean, I remember, I'll just give you my own version of my own life, my own truth. I was in a firehouse in Miami in a primarily black precinct. And I was there, brought donuts, brought orange juice for the team of election workers, and hung out with them for the day. And when there was a question, I was there to help answer it as a lawyer who was trained to know what I was talking about. And about halfway through, when it looked like that, they're trying to chip away some votes, a goon squad, there's no other way for me to put it. It was like the country club mafia showed up all wearing identical Brooks Brothers button-down shirts and khaki pants. You know that look? And penny loafers. They all showed up at the same time. And they were going to go and strong-arm the head of the precinct. And then they saw me with my blue button-down blazer and my gold buttons and my own khaki pants. And they hightailed it out of there. And so there is a value to doing this. And I get why the Republicans want to do it. But for them to say already, don't trust in the outcome of the election and start having these teams of lawyers ready with pre-written and pre-prepared lawsuits ready to file, what does that tell you about the party? It tells you everything you need to know about that party. We're going to continue to cover their attempts, the Republicans' attempts to undermine the integrity of the election and claim that it's unfair. There's been a stolen election already. Months before the election, right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF at the intersection of law and politics. You'll find out why when I co-founded Legal AF 4 years ago, we came up with the name Legal AF. If you don't know, join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We curate the top stories at that intersection of law and politics, and we bring it to you as practicing lawyers in the courtrooms that we talk about, talking about things we know what we're talking about, law and politics. And you can pick us up on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So if you like what I'm doing, give me a thumbs up and a comment. It helps. Follow me on social media at MS Popok. And then, of course, the podcast and hot takes like this one. So until my next podcast, Legal AF, until my next hot take, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary. Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.